This one's for the culture. Me and wifey in the room thinking of a master plan, thinking how we can influence the culture from where we stand. Knowing that our steps are ordered by the master's hand, still 10 toes down, we ain't switching up the stance. The mission of this music ain't just to make them dance, trying to tell them about the rock.
Hey, everybody. It is the lovely host back from our wonderful vacation in Miami for our second anniversary.
Hey.
So we are back and we are happy to spend some time with y'all. We're going to talk a little bit about our trip, and then we're going to get into some great stuff that went on while we were gone. We're going to dig all into that. A celebrity blocking occurred. Go figure that. So we got a great show. We thank you for tuning in. Again, this is at Mr. Ray Bond on Twitter, at Mr. Bond Chronicles on Instagram. We are at The Bond Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook.
Everywhere.
So please continue to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And I am blessed to be with my lovely co-host,
Mrs. Bond Chronicles on Instagram, Ms. Bond Chronicles on Twitter. I think I'm actually going to start using Twitter more. I was using it today, and I enjoyed it. So
I've been trying to tell you for a long time. So welcome to the party. A lot of information on Twitter, a lot of banter and back and forth, some good entertainment there. Also shout out to our EB Radio fam.
Hey y'all.
We're moving right along, so really enjoying that opportunity, seeing that blossom, us being a part of that. So just continued great things there. So Miami, we did a lot of walking.
We did do a lot of walking, unintentionally too.
Yes and no. But I enjoyed myself. It was different. I've been in warm climates, and it was just a different kind of warm.
Different kind of warm.
We got caught in a couple midday rainstorms out of the blue, which was different for me. I've been through it occasionally, but it had been a really long time. So overall, I had a good time. I enjoyed it. We'll get into some of the specifics, but kind of, what was your thoughts?
It was cool. I guess Miami hit a little different for me because I have been to pretty much all of the party cities in the United States, and Miami was never one that I, for whatever reason, got a chance to hit as a single gal. But I did all the other ones single, and I can definitely see why, Miami is a popular girls' weekend destination. But I was also a little bit underwhelmed. Like, I just thought it was going to be more, I don't know, glamorous maybe, or I think I thought it was going to just be more glamorous, and it was a whole lot of stunting going on.
Yeah, definitely a lot of that.
And I wasn't really expecting that, but I guess I should have, because Miami is super open. Like, there's COVID protocols, but they ain't following no protocols. And it seems to be a place that everybody's flocking to right now. So it was cool. It was cool to get the experience. It was cool to go and obviously enjoy it with you. Am I in a rush to go back there? Nah, there's a bunch of other places on my list of places to go. Then that one would fall way down there to visit again.
Okay. So I didn't really know what to expect, especially with us going for an anniversary. To your point, I can see why women would like to go there. You get to wear your favorite bathing suit, your favorite bathing suit cover,
or just whatever.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both for sure. But we saw a number of groups. I was hesitant because I didn't really know what to expect, and I thought it was really diverse for me. And we kind of talked about, you don't really recognize who's a local versus who's someone that's here on vacation per se. But for me, there was a number of stores and like fashionable things that fit my niche. There was a kit store, there was a billionaire store, you had your basic, your Adidas store, your I don't know if it's DTLR or something like that.
Yeah.
And so
Snipes
was there. Unknown was there. So a number of kind of urban clothes. We saw Pharrell's Hotel, which was
it was just pretty cool actually, just from the outside.
Right, we didn't get to stay there, but just the architecture I thought was pretty cool. The streets weren't awful for a city as far as like potholes and craziness.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the activity that was there, the street itself was actually pretty clean. Yeah, surprisingly.
And I think that, to your point, activity, there was a number of museums on our strip. I think there was a lot to do. We didn't go downtown Miami. We just stayed really on South Beach, and then we went to Wynwood.
And Apalaka.
And, well, we went to a restaurant.
We
did not walk around. We got out of the Uber, we went in the store, we got our food, and we went back in the Uber.
Back to the Uber.
And back home. Not that I necessarily wouldn't have wanted to walk around. One, I didn't see a lot when on our trip there. There didn't look like a lot to see. And two, I was extremely exhausted and I just got my food, so I wanted to eat.
Crabman 305, worth the hype. It was delicious. Black owned. We always try to support Black owned businesses. And I've been following them on Instagram for about a year now, after seeing other people that I know visit the restaurant. And like the pictures on Instagram alone just make you salivate, just delicious. And especially being from the DMV area, we all love crab, in whatever form you're gonna eat it in. And I'm like, in Florida though? Okay, I'm gonna check it out. And I'm so glad we spent the $50 Uber ride to go over there and get it, because it was definitely worth it. So shout out to them. And then they had really good service, which was cool, because that was one thing that was lacking in Miami restaurants, was good service.
So speaking of service, the probably thing I liked the least about Miami were the random service fees.
Yeah.
That seemingly varied from restaurant to restaurant. There didn't seem to be a consistent rhyme or reason with why someone charged a service fee versus someone not charging it, and how much one person charged versus how much someone else charged. Excuse me. So that was annoying. It got to a point I was like, I'm not eating on Ocean Drive anymore.
Yeah, we only ate on Ocean Drive a couple times.
We did the CJ's Crab Shack.
CJ's Crab Shack, which is also really good.
For what it's worth, the food I thought, generally speaking, was really good.
Yeah.
But the service fees made it harder to swallow. So I just, like I said, we quit eating there. Did you have a favorite food spot, a favorite thing besides Crabman? I think that's a consensus.
Favorites? No, I don't think so. Like, surprisingly enough, you guys got really good pizza in Miami.
A lot of pizza places.
Which I guess shouldn't be surprising, because, Miami was like a mob town, so there's a lot of little Italian pockets down there. But I can't think of any of the places that are like, oh my God, if we go back to Miami, I have to go there again.
Okay. I kind of disagree. The burger I got from STK, it was a Wagyu burger with fries, was bomb for me, and I refused to leave without getting it. So
you did.
I got it delivered.
On our way to the airport, basically.
I got it delivered via bicycle. That was a new experience. The chicken spot I liked a lot.
Oh yeah. I
kind of hinted at trying to go back there a couple of times, but it didn't work out. But there was so many options to eat.
And I had a list.
And you had a list. I was glad that we did get to go to Bistro Cafe.
Yeah. Even though it was an extremely large amount of food.
Right.
Like, insane.
I guess at some point we'll get to a point for YouTube where we can put pictures and stuff up. I guess I can do that if I feel like, taking all the time to edit. If you guys think it'll be worth it, you can comment on stuff like that, because a lot of our stuff we do detail. But we made the mistake of trying to go there because they don't take reservations on not only a Sunday, not only at brunch time, it was Mother's
Day.
So when we got there was a nice line outside. And one of those wonderful Miami shower started randomly out of the blue, and we were told we had a 3.5 hour wait. Possibly, yeah. At one point, we got to a point when I asked about the list. We were number 98, and they were at 52.
Yeah.
And that was after waiting about an hour or so. So
we gave up.
We went to like, this is going to take our entire day. Let's not do that. And where did we go back to?
We left and went to the chicken spot.
Okay.
We went back to South Beach and went to the chicken spot.
And I was perfectly happy with that because we walked right in, sat down, found the seat, and within probably 30 minutes had a nice
food.
Spicy chicken sandwich.
But for whatever reason, we couldn't get water. Like, we kept asking.
Yeah.
And no one ever
So
would
to
come
the
bring us
service
water.
point, there's not one, for me, there wasn't one restaurant I was like, you know what, that was really good service.
I'm going to tip you on top of the service fee.
CJ's, the guy was cool, but it wasn't really great service. He was just real laid back, easygoing, nice guy. But other than that, I wasn't impressed with the service from anywhere. So did you have a favorite time or event or something you did?
Definitely when we were walking around exploring Wynwood, graffiti, art, street art, whatever you prefer to call it. That's definitely my thing. I'm super into it. Like when we were there, I told you like one of my favorite things about going to London was going to see Shoreditch. So just walking around to see all the cool artwork, and I'm more of a funky person, so like the vibe there was definitely me, more so than everything that I experienced on South Beach. So I definitely, if we did go there again, I would definitely go back there and hit up probably the graffiti museum again. Definitely see the Wynwood walls because they change frequently. That was my favorite part for sure.
I agree. And so I'll say this is how God works. So the reason we found out about Wynwood, the reason we found out about Van Gogh, and the reason we found out about, I think, one other thing was because after our failed attempt to get our Mother's Day brunch or whatever, we got in the Uber with a very talkative driver.
Oh yeah, she was.
She was amped up. Like she was really, I guess, good at her job. She was like great. She was like a travel agent or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's like, oh yeah, I gotta do this. You're a black woman. Y'all gotta do this. You gotta do that. Have y'all heard about this? Have you heard about that?
Get on TikTok and follow things to do in Miami.
Right.
Like she was super helpful.
Like very, very helpful. So those are the two. Well, I guess that day, would have been my best day. We went to this Van Gogh museum, and I still haven't uploaded a lot, really any of that. I need to do that. But it was this immersive Van Gogh experience, which I just thought was really dope. I like art, but I took an art history class in college, hardest class I've ever taken. I
took an art history class, and for me it was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
So I enjoyed it because that's why I signed up for it. But trying to figure out what was contemporary versus Renaissance versus this versus that, and who painted this, it was a ton to try and digest, and they all kind of look alike. But for me, like I've always been a fan of art and street art as well, and just the skill and the craft that it takes, similar to tattooing, and we talk about anime and all that stuff. So that has always, been an interest for me. So really to see it was really cool, from going from the Van Gogh experience and how they made that, the artwork, which is, your traditional painting and all that, and then walking through Wynwood and seeing like modern day street art. I thought the artwork was very culturally relevant.
Oh, for sure.
There was a number of Kaepernick pictures, George Floyd, maybe murals is maybe the better term. I saw 2 Kobe murals, which was obviously important for me. And then there was just other black-centric stuff. And there were some abstract things, some cool things. That was the what was by the billionaire store? American History was yellow.
Yeah.
And then inside of each letter were different figures in American history that were black. So I just thought that was really well done. Even outside the billionaire store was a big billionaire mirror with a bunch of other stuff. So just that whole vibe to me was just really dope. It was really hot. We ended up walking really far. Like I said, we didn't know how far we were going to end up walking.
Yeah.
We walked through similar, I haven't told you my Oakland story. Maybe one day we'll get to that. But we took an Oakland-like path where we went from this really nice area, and then we had to walk through a bit of a shady area, a small tent city we walked through. Some unsavory looking situations kind of presented themselves, but I have no idea how you guys existed before maps on phones, but thank God we had GPS, because that could have went way left real fast. But yeah, man, it was just a really good experience for me. Took a number of good naps.
Oh yeah. And we don't typically, like, when we vacation hard.
Yeah, we need a vacation from the vacation when we get back.
Yeah. And this was probably the most chill vacation we've probably ever taken. Because we was taking a good solid 2-hour nap every day.
Yeah.
But I think that was a lot to do because of all the walking in the sun.
Right. The sun is a monster. And they were stingy with the water.
Super stingy with the water. Everywhere wanted to charge you like $2-3 for a bottle of water. And I'm like, obviously you pay it because you're thirsty. But after like that 4th or 5th bottle, it's like, good night, people.
Yeah. And then we bought these South Beach containers, drink things. Which
made life a lot easier.
They made life easier, but they didn't hold any water. So you put ice in it, it just starts dripping everywhere. It did not keep your water cold very long, but it served a solid purpose considering the alternatives were miserable. And then on the last day, we found the trolley. There was a free trolley. That would have taken us everywhere we wanted to go within South Beach.
Yeah.
And we found that because we started walking.
We're like, hey, let's just get on it.
Let's just
see where it goes. And it literally took us to every single place that we had walked to throughout the duration of our trip. Yeah. And so we were like, well, if we come back here again,
we know it's free.
And it's free.
You just get on, you go for a ride around the loop, and
you find everything.
So
it was crazy.
It was a wild experience. We've talked about kind of our audience, and some of these people are family friendly, and other people have asked us about the area. I think it can be family friendly if you navigate properly. So by navigating properly,
yes, explain that.
One, you have Uber. So I believe if you want to come and go to the beach, I thought the beach was pretty. There was a wedding on the beach. We saw that. Generally speaking, the beach was pretty chill. Did you have, we had this one group of women that were
Twerk City.
They twerked for 30 to 40 minutes, nonstop. I wasn't very impressed by their ability.
Yeah, the one girl had her and this was just
it looked
interesting for
awful.
Me to watch. But she had her face down in the sand and one shoulder down and a leg up and was shaking, and I'm like, there's the only people around here are other women with their men. Who are y'all shaking for? And why are you shaking so hard?
It didn't stop, and I didn't even hear music. Really?
No, they did have music. They did.
Well, they played it at a low level, but I was perplexed. What are y'all doing? So there was a little bit of that. I think you're gonna find this in most every major city. If you go out at this point, you're gonna smell the weed. And
you're gonna get offered to buy it.
Yeah, Zaza, I think is the.
And I don't even know what that is.
That's and I guess we're probably dating
I'm
ourselves.
not cool right now.
We're not with the Zaza. Apparently that's it. So for our EB radio people down there in Orlando, or it might be a national thing, because I think I was listening to
a song and I heard it say the Za, and I'm like, oh, so it's just me that's not cool enough to know what the Za is.
I don't know how long Zaza's been a thing, but
should ask your homie. He probably knows.
He might. So no, it was a learning experience, but I feel like at this point in society, you're probably going to deal with that any city you go to.
Yeah, because it was like that in Vegas. It was like that in Dallas.
Yeah.
Not so much Houston, but we didn't really hang out a lot in Houston.
We didn't. And
The only thing we did was the fight party club thing.
Yeah.
And that was a hookah spot, so.
Yeah, but it was there too, to a certain extent. But we didn't really, we walked the street, but we didn't. And Houston's just a different type of city.
Yeah.
Like it's not very densely populated. It's not a bunch of people around. So I think that you're going to deal with that. Now, at night, if you have children,
leave them in the room.
Leave them in the room. Order in, or depending on where you're located, Uber away.
Yeah.
Because Ocean Drive, it turns up. I saw a number of people holding snakes. I saw a bunch of people carrying open containers.
So many bottles of Douce.
Douce was
very popular.
Making some dollars down there. And then they had the little lady with the tray of cigars.
Yeah.
But they're not the cigars for smoking. They're the cigars for cracking.
Not cracking.
You know.
I know what you mean.
So that was a new experience for me. But the police were pretty chill. Our last day there, they arrested a homeless guy. But and again, most major cities you're gonna have that. So overall, I think you can make it fun. I thought the beach was cool. I think there's a bunch of museums. There's some event centers. There's sports teams. There's jet skiing. There's a bunch of water activities. So I think there's a lot of options for you if you want to make it a short, family trip. Get some good weather, get some relaxation. So overall, I had a good time. I think we were both ready to come back.
For sure.
I think we had stayed our welcome well enough, got our magnet, and
got our magnet.
Got to get the magnet. And it was a good time. So everybody, before we went, we knew a bunch of people that were going. We met some people in Mexico that said, let us know how it goes because we're going. So it is the spot. While we were there, we did not go to any nightclubs, but apparently Meek Mill and Rick Ross got into it. There was a shooting at a mall.
We were not there.
We were not there. So there is that. The world's opening up. We got these new lessened mask mandates. And, people, don't always know how to act with new levels of freedom. Which we're actually speaks to our next conversation we're going to get into. So, did you have anything else on Miami? Any other thoughts?
No, it was cool. I enjoyed what we did. Got what I wanted to get out of it. There are probably a few more food spots that I could hit. But other than that.
What did we do?
I mean, we didn't get to go to the Versace Mansion because it was booked until you gotta
June. So that's the thing. Book it like a month out because if it's not an open table, you can't do it. They won't answer the phone. We ran up on them. They're like,
you just check open table.
Yeah, you check open table.
But open table said they were completely booked, which it was. They said they were booked out until June, so we didn't get to do that.
That's true.
And there were a couple other places. I think the list is still on my phone, but again, that's neither here nor there.
We did most of them.
Boca House, we didn't get a chance to hit that spot, but that was kind of far.
Is that the dinner place?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. You can rent lots of 3-wheels. That's the thing. So
is it the slingshot?
Slingshot. I think that is.
Yeah. Whatever.
And there was a bunch of really nice cars that I think were mostly rented. I don't know what they must have had a special going because a bunch of people had like Rolls Royce trucks and Lambo trucks. Like at an alarmingly high rate, and they say don't judge a book by its cover. I saw the people driving those cars. We were super judgy. I don't know what they did for a living, but it didn't seem like they could afford those cars. So if they could, that was a whole bunch of them. And the way they drove some of them made me a little nervous. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good trip for us. A nice little getaway, and we got a lot out of it. So, while we were gone, in the podcast community, we've referenced the Joe Budden podcast on our podcast a number of times, and they had a little bit of drama.
Well, they've been having drama.
That's right.
Like, it's been unfolding now for a few months, And to see the way that it looks like it's coming to an end, I guess, for lack of better words.
It's dead.
It's just crazy. And again, like in the podcast community, we're still learning this, but there's still so much growth and uncharted territory within this industry. And the Joe Budden podcast, along with a few others, are really the quote-unquote trailblazers for creatives in this space. So to see how they're kind of imploding, it's just wild.
Yeah. So it's one of the few podcasts that I know on that level that have a group of people. Like Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan. Adam 22 is the No Jumper is him.
Yeah.
I Am Athlete has come along, but that's newer.
No, it's a group of them though. I mean, yeah. I know it's always Brandon Marshall is always on there, and the other guys whose names I don't know.
So what I was saying is like Joe, they've been in it for years.
Oh, okay.
I Am Athletes newer.
Just started, yeah.
Most of the people with the huge followings, they were one of the few groups of people with a recurring cast.
Yeah.
On that level. They won a number of awards. They won a BET award this last year for their podcast. So obviously, very successful podcast, a standard bearer and inspiration for a lot of people, kind of a media podcast in relation to they have a sleeper section to try and get artists known. They've brought on different artists, different people to really, in essence, help the Black community.
Yeah, they've had people on talking about cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
They've had people come talking about NFT.
Yeah.
Like they try to be, instrumental in a lot of the change, especially as far as wealth management, transfer, growth, to educate their listeners on what's going on and why these things are important.
Yeah, and empowering creators in
For
all
sure.
walks. Joe, in a lot of ways, and they fought in relation about contracts, which makes this whole thing ironic. In similar ways that Kanye was fighting maybe 6 to 9 months ago about record contracts and how they're unfair. And so Joe, Rory, and Mal have, from what we've understand, I'll try and walk through, and my wife will help me as well. It's been confusing because the very thing that, and I'll speak to Rory and Mal, have said it's not about, is exactly what they seem to be complaining about. And that's money.
I think for the sake of it, for people who might not be familiar with JBP, it might be easier to go back kind of towards the beginning of where we saw it all unfold as an audience versus jumping straight into the drama. Because if you don't have that context.
In relation to which part? What do you mean?
I mean, so the Rory and Mal, Joe Budden's co-host, took a 6-7 week hiatus from the show.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with the show,
okay, all right. So I'll say from a viewer perspective, there has been drama for a while, and I'm a guy that reads comments. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, I like to read the comments. Patreon, I'm a subscriber there. So the comments, you could tell that there's been a awkward, off-putting energy. There's been banter back and forth. There's been, quote-unquote, there's been threats. There's been frustration. There's been animosity. There's been gratuitous shots. There's been disrespect. And a lot of times it was laughed off, and the viewership was so great that it had just been kind of happening. But to us as the viewers, as the fans of the show, was like,
what is going on?
I get y'all be joking about some stuff, but it's kind of distasteful. So that led to a random announcement that they weren't going to have a show, I think on a Wednesday. And they said we'll be back on Saturday. And so they took the Wednesday off, and everybody was like, well, this is weird. There's 2 shows a week, and on Patreon, you get even more content. And there was nothing. And so then I believe Joe had episode that Saturday. And he just said the guys are on vacation.
Yeah.
And they'll be back, no big deal. And then the next week, I think he came on, he was on, because they only missed that one episode. And then it was kind of like, we're not going to get into it. They'll be back, just relax. And then I think by that next Saturday episode, it was finally like, all right, so there's an issue. And it's been an issue. And there was a disagreement. It was a really awkward episode. And then they said, yeah, in a month or so, it'll be fine.
Be figured out.
And for, as a viewer, I'm like, why the heck is it going to take a month? Like, if y'all are friends, like, figure it out. We want our people back. Like, for me, I'm paying money every month, I'm supporting you. I expect to see a certain quality of show. And then that following week is when Ish and Ice showed up.
Yeah.
And that was refreshing. To see two people without any industry ties, to see two people that weren't podcasters.
Essentially seem like regular people.
They are. One's a contract and one proudly boasts he works at Foot Action. And has no shame in that. So regular people. And you could just see the rapport was different. The vibe was different. The conversation was different. It just felt fun again. It was entertaining in its own way. We didn't have a bunch of great music takes. Ish, to this point, still doesn't understand sleepers.
Takes awful.
She doesn't
He
like
is awful.
Isis takes. He did play Lauryn Hill. He did, which was wrong, and he hasn't.
He's played a lot of people, but yeah, but that's not the point of this podcast.
So they, in essence, the show had to keep going. So finally, there was a picture posted. Everything's gonna be great. So now there's this thing of is Ish and Ice gonna stay? Are they gonna get their own thing? Like, what's happening? So boom, randomly, they're back.
Rory and Mal miraculous
return. To what I will give everyone credit for, I can't imagine what it was like to be in that room.
Nope.
To have those conversations, and in essence, what Joe did was he allowed Rory and Mal to just
go in,
tell their truth.
Yeah.
And it didn't make a lot of sense as a viewer. And they reiterated it wasn't about money. They reiterated that it was about respect, and certain conversations were had, and Joe told Rory not to come back, but then they had agreed to not come back, but then he wasn't supposed to be gone that long. And then Mal was like, well, I'm not doing this without Rory. And it was awkward. It didn't feel like things had been fixed. Like, it didn't feel like they probably should have came back. And the show kind of ended, and it was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And then the next episode, they made an announcement that we'll be gone for a week, and that episode wasn't great either. It was awkward. Mal did not want to be there. His energy was clearly off. He was not invested. And even Joe kind of joked about, he had been in the lab writing, like he was going to make a diss track to them. And Mal jumped all over that. Well, I got a couple people that are right for me, or, dish you back. And it just felt like, that didn't seem like it was a
your
joke.
feelings.
Like, you still mad. And so they took the week of vacation, and they came back.
But they didn't come back.
They didn't come back. And so Joe was left on an island again. And that episode, he fired them. And if you don't know Joe Budden, it was a very passionate, emphatic firing, like movie type firing, like reality
Donald Trump
TV.
could take some lessons.
Yeah, Donald Trump has nothing on Joe Budden when it comes to firing someone on TV. And so that kind of solidified the present state. It was gone, and then it was kind of like, well, no, actually that's not true. Joe said a lot. He was critical of the work ethic. He was critical of the situation and the stance that they were taking. and their role and impact in his life as friends, and he was noticeably hurt and upset. So,
as a friend and as a boss,
as an owner of a multi-million-dollar organization, he was visibly upset. And for what it's worth, there's a guy named Parks and some other people that were also vocal about their displeasure with the way things were handled, because it impacts everyone. This isn't the time to not have a check coming in. And people that just came off vacation where they probably spent money and paid to book the vacations, to my knowledge. So just not an ideal timing. And so there was a follow-up episode where Joe expounded on what happened, and he was very detailed on the situation and doubled down on his truth. Naturally, he was hurt by it, but he explained why he had to do what he had to do, and we'll get into that more. Naturally, on this past Saturday, at the same time that the Joe podcast came out, Rory and Mal responded. And so we'll kind of break down the responses, but naturally, as fans, there was a lot of communication with all parties on social media. Some were more responsive than others. Some took different approaches, but that's kind of the timeline of where we're at.
Yeah.
Would you add anything?
I mean, you summed it up pretty well. Again, like, if you're not familiar with the situation, you can Google it.
It's been trending.
For weeks now. That's obviously, especially in the podcast community, you can find said articles, videos of everything at this point.
Like, I'm in a Facebook group, and it showed up there in multiple different posts, or in a podcast Facebook group. So this is a show that was hitting 1 million YouTube views a week, or per episode.
Per episode, yeah.
So it's a big deal, a huge audience, and we felt necessary that, one, as supporters of the show, and then as podcasters ourselves, necessary for us to kind of speak our piece on it. And we're in a similar predicament of, we do this together as family, as friends, but also from a business perspective.
Right.
And, when you're married, you don't always have happy times. And so naturally there's some times, and we've had to, pod and maybe not love each other the way that we probably should in that moment. But this show has to go on. Like, it's bigger than me individually or her individually. And you
got a bigger picture in,
right,
in sight. And I think for me, especially, like, and I was thinking of it in relation to Reaction Apparel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just started the company. Like, I haven't even had, like, a quote-unquote profitable month yet. But I know in picture what I want it to grow into and what I want World Catalyst LLC to grow into. And so me, as just this little baby business, and I know what the potential of said business is if I put in the work now, tomorrow, 6 months from now, all that good stuff. And to see the way that Rory and Mal seem to want to divvy up not just Joe Budden podcast, but Joe Budden Network, off the strength that they helped build Joe Budden podcast, is like, dang, like, I was considering bringing some people in to help me design stuff. I was considering doing all these other things. And now I'm like, I think I want to keep it all to myself for right now, because I don't want somebody 6 years, 10 years down the line trying to tell me I own part of Reaction Apparel with you because of this, or World Catalyst LLC, I need to have a bigger role, a bigger title, a bigger whatever, because I was here when you signed XYZ deal. Nah, homie, because at the end of the day, it's Robin Bond's name on everything.
Right.
And I'm not sharing.
and nor should you. And so that became the big piece in this. Is there was Joe's the star. Like, I don't think there's any
however you want to cut the pie. That's what it is.
He's the star. He's the CEO. He was a former rapper. He's rapped with, you name it. He's rapped with most of the elites in the industry, or beefed with them. So he's either rapped with them or rapped against them. He's had a successful run on TV. He had State of the Culture on Revolt. He's had Love and Hip Hop. He's had The Pull Up. He's done a number of things. He had Everyday Struggle. So he has a history in this space of being successful. He's built up a solid fan base, and he's one of those...
He's polarizing.
He's polarizing, but he's one of those artists, as an artist, where he has that fan base. He, you know, the Kevin Gates, the Gucci Manes, that may not be the biggest name, but they have that cult-like following of people that really rock with what their music is. Mm-hmm. And they follow them through their ups and downs, and we all know musicians have a number of ups and downs. So his name is everywhere. It's the Joe Budden podcast. It's the Joe Budden network. It's Joe Budden TV. Like, his name is what brings in all these sponsors. Yes, he brought some people along that helped build the base, 100%. But to your point, you could have a phenomenal clothing line, and it does okay. And then you bring in somebody that's creative and designs an outfit, a logo, or something that's great. And it sells, and it flies off the shelves. It's the Supreme Box logo, or it's Kith, or it's whatever. That success that they helped bring you doesn't mean that now they own your company.
Not at all.
They could have a licensing deal with you that says, hey, we're partnering with you. For every shirt you sell, I get a cut of that. That does not mean that they have a cut of Reaction Apparel.
No.
They did something with that, and to your genius, you decided, hey, you're dope. People like you. Let me bring you in. I'll give you your percentage to help grow my business and brand. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. While they're working with you, they still have the creative ability to create.
And go other places.
If they choose not to do anything else for anyone else or do anything else on their own that you've allowed them to do, that's not your fault. And when your business takes off, that's not then their time to say, hey, I was getting a cut of this shirt design. Now that your business has taken off, maybe because of that design, I should get some of all of your business.
And that's not how that's just not how business works anywhere, in any way, shape, or form. Like, I've worked in corporate, and then I've worked in the service industry. Like, I've had a bunch of different jobs, and you can be doing a really great job for company A. You could be the best I'm a hairstylist. You can be the best hairstylist in the salon, bringing in the most money, all of that. And if you leave the salon and take your clients with you, like, they could potentially hurt the salon. But that doesn't mean you own the salon. You own, you bring in the most money. But if you decided to walk away, God forbid there be a non-compete in your contract, and then you can't work within 10 miles of the salon or whatever. Like, there are so many different nuances to the way the contracts work. You don't have to get into it to understand that if you're not in charge, you're a worker. No matter how you want to cut the pie.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Either you own it or you don't. Like, and that's the part to me that's really confusing.
Just mind-boggling to me with these two. And
specifically Maul, because he's the one that keeps... Rory has been kind of quiet about that part. Because Rory
probably understands what his position is.
Like, you can't say, I have a... I heard this so many times.
He said profit-sharing contract.
They have some kind of a profit-sharing contract. You have a profit-sharing contract that the Joe Budden podcast pays you a % of what the podcast makes.
Okay.
That makes you a worker.
Maybe you don't feel like you're an employee because you're not salary.
Spotify did not come to you and ask you to sign on the dotted line for you to sign that deal.
No.
Cash App did not come to you. Patreon did not come to you. They went to the owner.
Joe Budden.
Joe Budden. And he negotiated the deal. Even if the deal are the same figures that you might have had at lunch with one of your friends some time ago, he owns everything. It's his network. And they both have admitted, we didn't ask for the IP or the intellectual property. So you don't own it. You're admitting to everyone you don't own
anything.
Yet you're as passionate about not being a worker. And there's a bunch of stuff in relation to the contract that we can't see. And we were watching DJ Academic, shout out to him and his hot takes. His antics. But he made it simple. If you guys feel a certain type of way, post your contract. Let's see it. Let's see what it says so that we can decipher it and break it down and figure out who's right or who's wrong. They haven't done that. But regardless, that's the part that really I am lost on. How Maul, and fortunately, I don't dislike either one of them. I subscribe to the podcast. I give my money. I'm a fan of everyone included. Or I have been a fan of everyone included.
No, I'm not.
Naturally. We'll get to that in a minute. But the thought process is still broken. Like, he keeps saying the same thing. Like, you're not paying me, in essence, what I'm worth, or insinuating that stuff ain't on the up and up. I'm not involved. And that's the other thing. Rory's talked about talking to accounting. Rory's talked about all the stuff he's done. Maul hasn't said he's done anything. Like, and that's why I said, I'm pretty sure the reason Maul's taking that approach is because what Joe said is true. Y'all have the same lawyer. So when Rory says my lawyer, he's really saying
our lawyer. Because
Maul, from what our accounts, hasn't done anything other than have an occasional conversation and ignore phone calls. So I think that to me is the biggest miss here. And they've talked about Maul's background, and his brother or cousin Biggs was part owner of Rockefeller allegedly, and how he's just missing the boat on that particular issue. Now, the contract part, we can get into that, and we will. But the fact that he does not consider himself a worker, or he said, "I don't work for you."
Yeah, it's just he's too cool.
Like, that's beyond delusional.
To be considered an employee.
Like, you keep reiterating how you're a worker, and then say, "But I don't work for you," and it's none of my business. But you reiterate how much you don't care, and you double down on your post that I don't care about podcasting.
I don't care about the money. I don't care about the podcast. I don't care about the contract. I care about respect. But in every conversation, the respect that you're caring about is about how money doesn't seem right. You guys keep asking for accounting. And I think watching their response today from Rory, like, from the way he put it, they all pay an accounting firm to make sure the money is right, to keep everything in order. If Joe, like, the situation behind the scenes has been going on for like a year and a half, 2 years almost. So if Joe is not giving you the information that you need as a client of this accounting firm, you are within every right to say to said accounting firm, like, look, what I'm getting isn't what I want. This is what I want. Send it to me. And what does the accounting firm do? They send it to you. But not only that, it's like, you look at it, you find a discrepancy. Oh man, that's a mistake. Come down to the office, you, your lawyer, whoever, and we can talk about it. What did Roy say he did? He didn't want to go because it's not about the money. It's cool. Like, that's what I pay my accountant for. That's what I pay my lawyer for. Send them down there, and suddenly the mistake has been fixed, but there's still issues with accounting. So in my mind, as a listener and as a business owner, what I hear is you think that the numbers aren't adding up because the numbers aren't all there. You're looking at Joe Budden podcast numbers and comparing it to Joe Budden network numbers, thinking you should be getting money from Joe Budden network numbers.
Or saying Joe Budden lifestyle. He has the driver, he has the private chef, he's wearing the Versace hats, the Amiri hats, the Balenciaga hoodies, and it's like...
And you're trying to figure out,
where's
the money coming from? I don't understand. When I look at this number, this is what we're being paid, this is what the podcast is making, this is what our team is making, where is the rest of the money? Not realizing that Joe Budden Network is negotiating deals for other things, including Joe Budden, business owner, entity, CEO, whatever you want to call it. But you want all the money to be ready to be divvied up because you helped build the Joe Budden podcast. And that thinking is wrong. It's just, there is no place in America, in any world, in any part of the world, where you cannot come to work and still have a job.
For 6 weeks.
For 6 weeks. At McDonald's, show up a couple shifts, you're out. At Kohl's, I think I didn't go to work for a week. They sent me my last paycheck. Like, that's how it works. So the fact that he let all that stuff transpire between y'all and let you come back, get your issue off, then y'all took another week off just for him to receive a text message that, oh, I still have some things I'm sorting out, I'm not coming, and then Maul just doesn't show up. Like, where's the respect in that? If y'all have an issue with this man, talk to him. And if y'all can't resolve it amongst each other, then you get lawyers involved or a mitigator, like somebody to help mediate the situation. But the fact that they're all, and then I put this on Joe too, the fact that they're all sitting around, they're stewing over this situation behind the scenes, like, it makes absolutely no sense.
I completely agree. And so it's been really confusing for me on a number of levels. Because to your point, Rory said, I'm standing behind the accounting firm. So my understanding of this timeline is they got the accounting in 2019. They had been asking for it before that. So one, the hypocrisy that Ack and others have pointed out is you guys killed people like Uzi and others and young rappers for not knowing what's in their contracts.
And they clearly had
and signing bad contracts. And y'all, by y'all accounts, signed a very easy, basic, straightforward contract.
Profit sharing. Let's emphasize that because they kept emphasizing it.
A profit sharing contract. But you didn't explicitly explain the parameters around what kind of accounting access you get to. And Joe talked about that on, I think, his second solo pod, where he explained when he went and he said fireable offense. And it was, I don't know if you heard this part, but he said basically in the Spotify deal, it was, if we fire you, we don't have to pay you anything. We don't have to, you can't recoup any money. And his lawyer at that time said, no. We're not just going to have fireable offense. We need to have explicitly what offenses are covered. So if I get arrested, if I say the wrong word on air, like, what is it going to dictate for me to get fired? And thus, he said that towards the end of their Spotify deal, he was trying to get fired because they would have made more money getting fired.
Yeah.
Rory and Maul's fault here, I think there's a number, but one of the biggest faults is they said we want access to accounting. And they keep complaining about the accounting they got in the body of the email or the accounting they got on the spreadsheet. You got to litigate that. You need to explain and have it broken out how you want your accounting set up. Because technically, they gave you accounting. If you don't like the way it looks or you think that there's more to it,
then you're not asking for accounting, you're asking for an audit.
You're asking for an audit, or you should have been more explicit in what, do you want just the podcast accounting? Do you want the tour? Like, you need to be very specific when it comes to stuff like that, and you should have had that written into your contract. And the lawyer that negotiated that between the two of y'all, he failed y'all. He didn't give you that insight, and maybe you guys will say because, well, it was our friend. We would have thought that when we asked for accounting, we would have got this. When you start asking your friend for accounting, they're probably going to feel a certain type of way.
For sure. And I think, because obviously, one, Maul's a lame for blocking me on Instagram. He is the ultimate lame. Like, who am I? And not to put it like that, but who am I? So he blocked me because on a commenter on one of his posts, they said something about how friendship is what is the respect, and friendship is what's really going on between these two, the three of them. And Maul and Rory have been upfront and super transparent from the very beginning. And I'm like, what podcasts have you been watching? Rory, before the disappearance and them not being on the podcast, Rory would literally sit there and talk about how much he hates podcasting, how he wants to fight Joe Budden. And fine, you guys joke about that in your off time, whatever. But me I'm not like a super, I haven't watched every episode. But the episodes that I do watch, like, it is aggression. You come into the office, you don't want to talk about your life on a podcast. You are threatening to beat up your boss, or inviting your boss to your hands on a regular basis.
Just really quickly about that, and I don't want you to lose your point.
No, yeah.
When you have friends with someone, there are times when times are good, and when you're in a relationship with someone, there's certain things you can say and joke about.
Yeah.
When things are good. When there's known animosity and friction, certain things you can't still say.
Yeah.
Like, me and her, we've had conversations. We'll joke around like, you don't want to see me or something like that, and it's joking. If we're in the middle of an argument and I say, see me right now, that ain't the same thing.
It's not.
So when you know behind the scenes that you three have a real issue, and you repeatedly...
That people will literally fight over.
That people... money? What? People have died over money.
Facts.
Many times. And so when I know that you think I'm robbing you or stealing from you when I've given you a raise and I paid you when we weren't making any money, and now you're trying to accuse me of stealing from you, and on air in front of the people, this is my organization, my multi-million-dollar business, and they know what's going on behind the scenes as well. And in that moment, you are inviting me to fight you?
The audacity.
Multiple times. This wasn't a one-off.
No.
Multiple times.
And I remember because, like, you play the podcast when we're just in here or whatever, and, like, I'll be upstairs doing something, and I'll stop and listen. I'm like, why is Rory so mad? Like, really, what's going on with him that he's so upset? Like, did his girlfriend leave? I mean, and he did. Like, he went through a breakup with his fiance. Like, he's had a bunch of stuff going on in his life.
Self-inflicted.
A lot of it. And it's all spewing into the podcast. And then Maul is sitting here way too cool for school. Like, I'm in here, I'm on my phone. Like, I'll chime in when I really got something to say, but otherwise I'm going to sit here and drink my juice. Like, I didn't understand it. So when Ice and Ish came, I was like, oh, bet. At least like, I don't like Ice's opinion about pretty much anything, I think, music-wise. But other than that,
on Cole.
He was still whack for what he said about J. Cole. Really?
No Cole on Fridays.
No. Yeah, whatever. But just watching the interaction between them, I'm in the back of my mind like, what's going on behind the scenes that the chemistry is so off between Rory, Mal, and Joe? And then they come back to scream, it's not about money. It's never about money. Mal is like, I can get a bag anywhere. It's not about money. It's about respect. But me, I'm looking at it. I'm like, so where is the respect for this man's business? Like, if you feel like there's issues in your friendship, completely understand it. But as a business person, like, regardless of whether you feel like he should have brought Ish and Ice on, there's a whole other group of people who still were looking for paychecks every week. There's a whole contract between Patreon, Cash App, YouTube that's expecting content every week. So whose pocket is that money going to come out of? Because you and Rory already pissed off because y'all think that there's something shortened from yours. So Joe's supposed to foot that bill too. And just the way that they've been moving throughout, obviously, what we've seen in the last few weeks, it's like, y'all don't respect him as a business person. And then the first opportunity you take to tell your side, all you're doing is proving that you don't respect him as a business person. Because if you did, everything that you've done up until this point wouldn't have transpired. So to me, to listen to what they were saying to Saturday, I'm like, who's really advising you? Because at this point, the only trump card it sounded like you had was the missing $400,000. But it also seems like that's been resolved.
Right. And so there's a couple pieces with their Saturday episode. The first that was, I'll just say it was offensive to me, was and I won't just speak for myself because I haven't been around for the whole 6 or 7 years, but I've been around for a while. We've followed y'all. We've supported y'all. We've gone to y'all shows. When we've done whatever. When y'all have had the merch issues, all that stuff, your fans supported y'all. We only one, you were given an opportunity to explain yourself. And you lied to us, flat out.
Yeah,
you lied to us.
It's not about money.
And then when you didn't like the way you were fired and the way you were responded, or your character, how it was.
What was he kept saying?
Man.
Decimated.
Yeah,
decimated?
Because your character was
defamated.
Because your character was defamated. Oh, now I'm going to respond with the truth. That's corny. That's weak. That's corny. And then to double down on your weak and corniness, you're going to charge us $2.
It was such a money grab.
Like, I get I get the idea. You want to make it cheap, but you also want to drive revenue. So I get the money grab. Do that down the road. We've been waiting to hear your real issue as to why y'all left the show for 6 weeks, 7 weeks if you count when y'all didn't show up the last week. And now we got to pay, even if it's $2. And for most people, and I saw people killing people in the comments, oh, you broke, you don't want to spend $2.
No.
Trust me, I got $2. But I ain't giving it to y'all. And guess what happened? Within a couple hours, I watched the whole joint for free. And there's absolutely no shade in me because you tried to play me by charging me $2 to hear y'all little opinions. And in a lot of cases, I thought they made themselves look silly.
They look dumb. But back to my point, like, Maul blocked me. Again, you're such a lame for that. He blocked me on Instagram because the questions that I asked, I wasn't the only person asking those questions. If you have issues with accounting, like, that's not just and you have an accounting firm that works for you, that's not just a Joe Budden issue, that's a all y'all issue. But it's going to Joe because y'all are asking Joe for accounting, but you're not a worker, but you're paying an accounting firm. Like, what is it? Do you have access or not? Are you a boss or not? And the fact that you're so stubborn and I can just hear your chest puffed out every time you say, and he wanted to put his boss's hat on. He wanted to be in charge. Like, bro, because he was in charge. There's no shame in that. You're a contracted talent. And the benefit of your contract is you shared in profit sharing for Joe Budden podcast. Joe Budden Network, that's a whole different bag. And that bag don't belong to you.
None of it.
But you guys are listening to whomever you're listening to, and now you put yourself in a position where now you're fired, and you haven't formulated a plan in the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And so now y'all are grasping at straws. You can sue. You said you're not going to sue. Okay, like, whatever the case may be.
But that's the whole point. If it's not about money, why would you sue?
If it's not about money, then why are we here?
That's an even more important question. And that's the thing that it was really just confusing for me. And say what you mean and mean what you say. If y'all is pissed because y'all think he's stealing from y'all, or y'all want to see y'all percentage, then the part that me and you talked about this, Rory reiterated, I'm standing behind the accounting. You're paying for the accounting. You said in your story that they were going to allow you to come in with your accountant. You didn't go. So if you have that access, why are you calling or asking Joe for anything?
Right.
How is Joe at fault for not sending you the accounting if you are paying the accounting firm? And if they made that mistake then,
why are you still
working with them now?
What?
If you said they made one mistake and they fixed it, and then they made a $400,000 quote unquote mistake. Those are Maul's words. I don't know what quote unquote means. Either there was a $400,000 mistake or there wasn't.
Because that's too big of a number to just be.
That's a massive number, especially for the size of that company. Like, it's a multi-million-dollar company, but it ain't no billion-dollar company. $400,000 is a lot.
They only just got to be multi-million.
And that's fair.
And then I guess another portion of all of this is what I guess another thing that is not being taken into account for. All of this stuff has been happening in between different deals falling apart, them walking out on, saying no to, however you want to spin it, and them not having any deal. So the initial Spotify deal ended. They couldn't renegotiate another contract that they liked. And so JBP was unfunded, but they did not miss a show. And you want to know what else happened? Nobody missed a paycheck.
Nobody.
So who was who was signing checks when that was going on?
What percentage of the podcast were you getting when it wasn't making
When there was no money, when there was no profit.
So what check are you getting? Where's that money coming from?
And if you're a profit sharing partner, you're not signing your own check. Somebody else is signing the check.
Well, we know they weren't signing no checks because they didn't own nothing.
So it's just crazy to listen to these two lames, because at this point, that's how I feel. Like, I always thought Rory was kind of a lame just from watching the podcast. Like, I didn't understand, like, really his purpose there. But just watching how all of this has broken down, like, you're super lame. And again, Mala's even more lame for following Rory down this rabbit hole to nowheredom, because I'm not going to say that's where they're going to end up. If they take this momentum and they ride it and turn it into something, they could have a successful podcast. 100%. Joe said he wasn't going to stomp on it. If they wanted to do something, they could do something. But if they let all of this, trendingness die down and fade into obscurity for a year, no one's going to care when they start a podcast up.
Not to the extent, and I think we've talked about this on our podcast before. There's a difference between someone watching your video and someone paying for your content.
For sure.
And so we've seen certain people, and I'll use 6ix9ine as one, because he did that. He got out of prison after he got done ratting and snitching, and he dropped the Instagram or a YouTube video, and it broke the internet. Huge numbers. When that album came out, them sales did not match all them views.
Womp womp.
And so I doubt they will release the numbers on their $2 thing today, because I saw a bunch of people, that said, yeah, $2, I'm gonna do it.
A bunch of fans.
But say 100,000 people spent $2. That's $200,000.
Sounds like a really nice number.
It sounds like a huge number. It's great for y'all. But we ain't did no taxes. We ain't talked about the studio. Y'all are splitting that. And who knows what else is involved in that. So I think it'll be curious to see, kind of what comes of it. But from everything that we've heard, we heard Ian, we've heard Parks, we've heard different people talk. There were some really big things on the horizon. And I still think there are for Joe Budden's network.
Go ahead.
No, go.
And again, that's where the money issue is coming from. They see what they're getting from Joe. And again, this is all speculation. We don't know these people. We don't know the privy of their contracts or anything like that. But in the small dealing, like even with us deciding to partner with EB Radio, we signed a contract.
We did.
And we looked at that thing, like there was stuff in there that we didn't understand. We was texting people that we know, like we know someone who is, what does he do? He's like an entertainment lawyer. We're asking questions, like trying to make sure that anything that we were putting, signing on for, the main thing we wanted to make sure we were doing was not signing away any of our ownership of the Bond Chronicles.
100%.
And after we made sure all of that was straight, we looked at the numbers and we were like, okay, we with it. We'll try this thing out. And so they're looking at it from a perspective of, this is where we are with profit sharing for Joe Budden podcast. And we don't like the fact that we probably could be getting more. So instead of saying, let's renegotiate, let's figure out new numbers, they start attacking all the old numbers. Because they know what Joe Budden is the head of creator content, creative equity.
Creator equity at Patreon.
At Patreon. So he's not just building Joe Budden Network. He's potentially going to be building a whole segment for Patreon. And that's huge. Like, I subscribe to Jackie Hill Perry on Patreon. Like, there's a few things that I look at on Patreon. I'm just like, this is a really great platform.
It's a wave. I saw Lecrae's on there.
Yeah.
A lot of people are moving that route
to Patreon. Because, one, you have control and 100% autonomy over the content that you create. And in today's space, that's super important, especially for Black creators.
100%.
You see these TikTok videos go viral and all that, and then the people who created it never get any credit for it. So it's super important to be able to control what you put out there, how you put it out there, and how you monetize something that comes from you, period. And the fact that they see what Joe is building, even take the business part out of it, fine. The strength and respect of our friendship. If you see how important this particular issue is to me, as my friend, even if you don't understand how I'm moving, at least have the respect for me, for our friendship, everything that we've been through, to come and talk to me like my friend. I just went through this. If you don't understand something that I'm doing, then come have a conversation with me. Don't let me hear about it from this person, and you really have an issue with me. Because I'm sitting here looking like, well, dang, like, I remember that one time I forgot to call and say happy birthday, and I'll be forgetting to respond to text messages, but my whole friendship is imploding right now, and I don't understand what happened. Like, you get to a point where it's like, at this point, bump everybody. Y'all want to be gone? Deuces. And all they keep screaming about is respect, when at the end of the day, it's really about money. And it sounds like it's about money that they're not even entitled to.
And I think that was my initial response, and I still feel the same way, is even all that aside, even if they are owed this money, where things are going, I don't think it was worth it.
For sure.
Like
they could have figured this out.
They could have figured it out. They could have potentially worked through it. I just think it was really short-sighted. And I think Maul's 40, Rory's 30. They've worked in that environment, that business. So I would have thought they would have moved differently. And if you're in your contract, I don't think the option or the solution should have been, we're not going to show up.
It was the dumbest move.
Like, work through it. And I get that there's a chemistry issue that you got to work out. But there's people that go to work every single day and can't stand their job and don't like their bosses. You got to suck it up. You signed the contract. And if you don't, then you're in breach. And when you're in breach of contract, you get fired.
You get fired. And then at that point, whatever you were entitled to in your contract, that's gone now.
Gone.
And Joe don't got to consult with nobody because Joe owns it.
He owns it.
So, just this idea that whatever, again, like, I don't know these people. I don't know what their end goal is, what the plan is. But again, there are portions of their contract that are actionable after the fact. 100%. And if Joe really wanted to make them if the goal is to start their own podcast by getting out of the contract, they still have contractually a year before they can start another podcast. Now, Joe can choose whether or not he wants to, enact said clause. But if he does, then what do you do for a year? You run around talking about how Joe won't let you start a podcast of your own? No, you won't let you start a podcast of your own because it was in the contract that you signed off on.
And you could have started your own with him. Like that's the part that I feel like is missed, and we've seen a couple people say that, like, go do something without him. And I'll get ready to kind of wrap this up. And even the name of their response was, "I'll name this response later." All week, that was Joe's original. I will name this podcast later. That was the original name of the Joe Budden podcast.
So we're not dumb. We get the irony.
And then even all week when he was doing the stuff, when Ice and Ish first rolled theirs out, it was Joe will name this podcast later, then we'll name this podcast later, then you'll name this podcast later. So even your idea, I guess it was meant to be shady, but it just shows, to me, the lack of creativity.
And immaturity.
And then you ended your
whatever
I'll name this later with the drop from your show. Like, it was disappointing is probably not strong enough of a word. I thought it was disrespectful. I thought it was a slap in the face to me as a fan to try and charge me $2 just to hear your response, your truth, not the truth, not my truth, the truth.
Right, as if everything, and because even within that truth, like, there were so many holes in both of their stories. And not to say that I'm 100% on Joe's side, because there was a lot of stuff that Joe could have done better that they never even got to this point.
100%.
Period. You don't want to talk to your friends about money and accounting? Hire someone so that you don't have to. Mm-hmm. If you feel like the work environment has come to a point where it's putting your friendships in jeopardy and you want to be the boss, that's what HR is for.
Right.
It never should have come to the point where you're having argument matches with your friends who clearly don't understand that you're in charge, and you don't want to have to keep saying, well, I'm in charge to your friends of this business that you're trying to run and grow and turn into this empire. There are so many avenues that you could have taken that would have given you a different outcome. And that's poor leadership skills.
It is.
And for what it's worth, he owned that on the pod episode on Saturday. And he had the therapist lady come in, and, they was rapping, and apparently she's been in therapy with him and Rory. Like, there are too many avenues in which this could have been resolved before it got to this. But now we're here, and this is the way everything is playing out, and y'all are moving like clowns. So I'm sure you blocked me on Instagram. I'm sure he blocked me on Twitter after the stuff on Twitter. You can block me on YouTube too, but I still don't care. I don't care about this podcast.
Like that, and they both reiterated how much they don't care, but clearly they do.
They really care.
So I think if you guys just be honest, be open, it bothered y'all. Y'all want to see the money. You think you can keep saying we didn't accuse anyone of stealing anything.
You did.
You did.
In so many ways, you did.
So I think it'll be interesting to see Joe's response. We probably won't get that until Wednesday of this week. So we'll see what kind of comes of that. We can update you guys some. We're not going to spend a bunch of our time on it. We thought it was relevant just because we're in the space, we're in the community, we are followers, supporters of them and what they have. We want
and as creators, like, it is watching how this unfolds is definitely important for us
100%.
Because one, again, the most important thing in all of this is ownership, and that's what it seems like it's going to boil down to. How much of a percentage they own of something that they helped build. They want this. Joe thinks they're entitled to that. we need to really assess the way that we're running our podcast before we start making more moves to do more things. Because obviously where we're at right now isn't where we want it to be 10 years from now.
Right.
So it's just crazy to see someone who, by all accounts, has been really successful in this space go through such a, I guess, unfortunate issue with his folks.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be keeping you guys abreast of this. We had a lot of new music come out this last
J.
week.
Cole, though.
So we'll definitely get some time to get into the J. Cole,
The
the
off
Nicki,
season.
the Migos drops.
I don't care about none of the other stuff. The off season, though, y'all. Who's listened to it? You've all listened to it. It's okay, because J. Cole's the best. He's just the best. I can't wait till he goes on tour. I'm going front row.
What she said. So we love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Like, share, subscribe. Leave us some comments, and we look forward to catching up with y'all.